In November of 2012, Michigan voters were asked if they wanted to enshrine collective bargaining in our state constitution. The answer was a resounding no. Soon afterward, the state legislature approved laws that made Michigan a right-to-work state. Essentially, this means that no employee can be fired for not financially supporting or being part of a union. The past decade has proven that right to work has been a key step forward for both worker freedom in Michigan and our state economy. The bills before us today would be a huge step backward. Right to work was part of the historic and important changes needed to fully emerge from the lost decade of the early 2000s. Michigan's annual real inflation-adjusted median household income has risen since it became a right-to-work state. Real inflation-adjusted median household income had actually declined in the decade prior to our state becoming right-to-work. Claims that Michigan's economy was better off as non-right-to-work are simply not true. And we should realize what damage will be done for our economy if we switch back to the failed policies of the past. Many job providers will be less willing to locate or expand in Michigan if we eliminate our right-to-work status. They will simply cross us off the list of consideration. Beyond the economy, right to work is simply the right thing to do. It is frustrating to hear that this policy is labeled as anti-union, because at its heart, it is pro-worker. It is an issue of freedom and individual liberty. No one should be forced to associate with an organization unless they freely choose to do so, especially to put food on the table and support their families. Repealing this law would be very un-American and go against the very principles our nation was founded upon. Right to work does not prohibit unions from operating, and it does not prohibit anyone from joining a union. It does, however, provide an incentive for unions to do a good job serving their members. Unions that do a good job should thrive because their members believe that belonging to it is worth paying their dues. But if someone is part of a union and doesn't feel like they're getting what they're paying for, then they have an option to leave. Union leadership understands that and should be more accountable and responsible to members. That's the benefit of our current system. I understand unions provide a lot of services, but they are inherently political. A worker should not be forced to financially support an organization that backs political candidates or causes that they do not support. And that leads us to the bottom line question. What is the real motivation behind this attempt to repeal Michigan's right-to-work law? It won't help the economy, and it won't help workers, so who does it help? Forcing more workers to financially support unions means more money will go toward union-backed political candidates and causes. Those efforts overwhelmingly back Democrats. This isn't about policy, it's about politics. This is basically a political fundraiser being launched at the state capitol. If right to work is such a bad idea, why is no one else repealing it like Michigan is doing today? More than half our states in the nation are right to work, and the number has grown steadily. Only a couple of states have ever repealed a right to work law, and no one has done it since the 1960s. Indiana was the last state to do it in 1965, and they later realized it was a mistake. Indiana returned to a right-to-work status in 2012. Michigan would be making a historic mistake today by repealing right to work. When I graduated college in 2007, there were not many job opportunities in Michigan. I watched friends move away from the state right and left because there weren't any jobs here. We made changes in our state, including right to work, that increased opportunities. And now we are threatening to turn back the clock to an era that failed. I have 5 young kids. I worry that this legislation before us today will eventually take away opportunities for them and all of our kids who want to stay in our state and raise families of their own in the place where they call home. Please vote no on this legislation. Thank you, Mr. President.